Some of the limitations that have hindered effective implement some of the limitations or the hindrances for effective implementation of the CBC. Number one, we have inadequate workshops and trainings for the teachers on how competency-based curriculum pedagogies are carried out. For example, there are a few workshops, okay, which train teachers on how a lesson is delivered, how a project is made, okay. There are a few workshops, so it has limited effective implementation of the competency-based curriculum. We also have limited resources to achieve some of the outlined skills and competencies. For example, teaching aids like learners' guides and among other relevant learning and teaching materials, they are inadequate for effective implementation of the curriculum. Also, we have resistance to change by some teachers of the knowledge-based curriculum. Some teachers have intentionally refused to accept the CBC, okay? And they are still saying that it won't work, okay? How can learners generate their own notes and among other reasons? So, as they are resisting it to adopt it, they are minimizing or they are limiting the effective implementation of the revised lower secondary curriculum. We also have, though we have the limitations, but there are also ways to enhance the performance of the CBC. Number one is full refresher courses should be put in place for all teachers because seminars and workshops are insufficient to fully generate new ideologies in the first number of teachers who are viewed as the key drivers of this moving vehicle of change, the curriculum. Hope you are getting me. They are saying that full refresher courses whereby we teachers are required to first go back and study, which I don't know it's possible, and to study how is this CBC conducted rather than studying while we are in the field. That's way number one. Full refresher courses should be put in place for all teachers because seminars and workshops are insufficient to fully generate new ideologies. For example, today they can put a workshop at Mengo SS. They say that the entry fee is 50,000. You go there for a full day, but you get some concepts, but not all of them you get them, okay? You get a few and you still be lagging behind to acquire some other concepts. Then we also have provision of adequate resources in terms of ICT equipment and accessible textbook materials, not only to government aided schools, but also to private schools, because learners from both institutions will have to serve the same society. So the provision of adequate resources in terms of ICT, computers, and other teaching and learning materials. For example, the textbooks like book 1, book 2, book 3, which are trending right now, and also other materials, not only to government aided, but also these relevant learning materials should be provided to private schools because all of the learners in these schools, they come out to serve the same society. So as the various stakeholders, for example, the schools, the government, the NCDC, the publishing bodies provide the different materials to these schools, the curriculum shall be implemented with full refresher courses and adequate resources. We also have the way of enhancing the performance of the competence-based curriculum, where number 3 is schools should respect the policies and guidelines of the revised lower secondary curriculum. For example, the curriculum states that teaching should begin at 8 a.m. and end at 2:55 p.m. and students should engage in self-discovery with the teachers through project work, research, and other extracurricular activities. However, several schools continue to teach learners past the stipulated time, leaving only 1 or 2 days a week for project work, which is true, okay? Because if you go to a school there, which is over there deep in the village, teachers don't know how to conduct the CBC. For them, they are still using the knowledge-based curriculum, and they could teach from 8 a.m. up to 4 or up to 5 or up to 4:40, okay? But They are saying for effective implementation of the CBC, we should respect the policies and guidelines of the revised lower secondary curriculum. Hope you are getting. As we respect the policies, like if the school and the DOS plans the timetable that teaching shall start from 8 and end at 2:55. Then from 2:55, learners will be engaged together with their teachers. Don't say that you learners, you go and research, and you, a teacher, you go back to the staff room, you start Googling, you start WhatsApping. No. At that time, you must monitor, are these learners doing research? If they are doing research, you come and intervene. What are you doing? Why are you doing? How are you doing it? Who is doing it? As you ask those questions, you are going to stimulate the minds of the learners to think, to create a deeper understanding of the subject matter into them. But most teachers, as that time reaches, research work, the teachers go back in the staff room, they say that teaching has ended. No. You have to respect the policies and guidelines of the revised lower secondary curriculum. We also have teachers should use the learner-centered method of teaching instead of the old teacher-centered method. Like instead of the old teacher-centered method, if I say old teacher-centered method, I mean the rote learning technique via the piecemeal approach, where a teacher you could come with your lecture method, you start lecturing, you tell learners information, like that. But here they are saying use the learner-centered method, whereby you must put learners at the center of learning, involve them in participation. If learner A is doing this, ask learner B, what's your contribution towards this matter? That's a learner-centered approach. This will enable learners to be at the center of teaching and learning, giving them a platform to thrive. Thrive, the word thrive can mean to succeed very well, okay? To thrive and achieve the desired skills and competencies with guidance of the teachers. If I say competencies, your mind should run to the generic skills of critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, mathematical computations, and ICT proficiency, and among others. So, as we proceed, we have the regulatory body, which is called the NCDC. And NCDC is the National Curriculum Development Center. It's the body which designed this curriculum, and it rolled it out through the Ministry of Education and Sports. And here they are saying the National Curriculum Development Center is a corporate autonomous statutory institution under the Ministry of Education and Sports, responsible for the development of educational curricula for pre-primary, primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions in Uganda. The NCDC evaluates the need for syllabus revision. Yes, please, your hand you have raised up your hand. You can ask, yeah, you can just unmute and ask or type, I see. Hannington. Hannington. Hannington, you have raised up your hand. You can unmute your microphone and talk. Yes, please. Okay, welcome. So I was talking about the NCDC after seeing ways to enhance the performance of the CBC. Remember, for today's discussion, we are just looking at the brief overview, the why, the aims, the reasons, the limitations, the ways to enhance the performance of the CBC before going to the most interesting part of the teaching and learning process, the assessment, the project work, and among other activities. So I was talking about the NCDC as a body that evaluates the need for syllabus revision and curriculum reform at primary, secondary, and tertiary levels of education, in preschool and post-school education, and in teacher education. And they are saying the NCDC also provides technical assistance to schools in terms of instructional delivery, curriculum framework, curriculum guides, i.e. the teachers and learners guides, okay? The NCDC, it has its people, of which it sends them to different schools to teach the teachers on how this curriculum should be carried out. So that's about the NCDC. To wind up with my words, because I'm seeing you are approaching time, I would like to advise you, if you want to know more about the why or the justifications or the need for change of the curriculum, you should go and read more about the following policy documents. The policy documents, these are the bases which were used to review the lower secondary curriculum. And number one, we have the government white paper on education 1992. We have the national teachers policy. We have Uganda National Institute of Education policy and guidelines. Number four of the policy documents, we have implementation guidelines of the revised lower secondary curriculum 2021 NCDC. The NCDC made those guidelines and they are there on the internet. You must go and search them. Then another policy document that was based on to review the lower secondary curriculum, we have the Education Act 2008. We also have the Uganda National Development Plan 1, 2, and 3. Also, we have the Uganda Vision 2040. You can go and pass through it and you find out what does this vision talk about, okay? What does it state? What is the NDP is the National Development Plan state, okay? You go and you look at them. You go also and pass through the implementation guidelines of the revised lower secondary curriculum. You see what do they need. For those who want the Uganda Vision 2040, the implementation guidelines, I have them in soft copy. You can tap me via WhatsApp, I send them to you personally. Also, you can go and read about the National Teachers Policy, the Government White Paper of Education, and also the Uganda National Development Plan 1, 2, and 3. You see what do they say about education. As you acquire that information, you will be contented in planning your lessons, in scheming, in line with the set objectives and goals set by the different bodies within the country. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And in publishing the link, I typed on the link that the last review, the last brief overview of the revised lower secondary curriculum. That's what I typed on the link. So this marks the end. This marks the end of the revised lower secondary curriculum, the brief overview. And when we are to meet next month, if all goes well and on God's mercy, we shall see the teaching. We shall see how the lessons are delivered. We shall see how are activities of integration generated across the different subjects. We shall see how are these learners assessed, how are the scores awarded, like they say that you mark out of 3, okay? The 10% is for project work, the 10% is for activities of integration. To make it the 20%, okay? We shall see all that, how is it done. So there are also some abbreviations which you need to know. For example, these abbreviations shall help you if you are to learn detailedly the CBC. You should go and search about them. Like some abbreviations are in the training packages for the DIT, okay, Directorate of Industrial Training. You go and open those occupations. The rabbit farmer, the dancer, the hairdresser, the plumber, and among other occupations in the DIT, there are good abbreviations to know, okay? Because you might go to a certain training and the facilitator shall say, according to the ATPs, this and this and this, then you start wondering what does the ATP mean? And take an instance that you might fear to ask the facilitator, okay? So you go and read about those abbreviations, but I have 50. I wanted to read out some of them, like 20. And the first one is BRMS, which says basic requirements and minimum standards. We have BTVET, business technical and vocational education and training. We have the CUM, develop a curriculum. We have this Directorate of Education Standards. All of those abbreviations, some are bodies, and they have a vital role they play towards curriculum implementation. We have the EFA, Education for All, Inclusive Education, whereby a teacher should not discriminate or segregate a learner with a different learning need. We have the EMIS, Education Management Information Systems. We have the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals. We have the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, as we saw earlier at the start of this session. We also have the ITA, Initial Teacher Education. We have the IBE, National Bureau of Education. As we saw at the beginning, we saw the role of the IBE, its aims, and also its regulatory bodies. We saw it, and also it's a good organization to go and study about what is its role towards education development. We also have the UN, the United Nations, as at the beginning I discussed it. It plays a great role towards development of education among the different countries within the world. We also have UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. We have the DIT, Directorate of Industrial Training. We have the MOS, which is the Ministry of Education and Sports. NCDC, we know it. We have the NVQF, which is National Vocational Qualification Framework. We have the OP, Occupational Profile, under the DIT. So these terms shall be used in the different work which you will attend, okay? Someone will say, the OP of entrepreneur, then will ask you what means that, okay? So you go in those different expressions of the DIT, you read about these abbreviations. We also have the PEP, which is PEAP, Poverty Eradication Action Plan. We have the TDMS, Teacher Development and Management Systems. We have the UNICEF, United Nations Children's Education Fund. We have the VTI, Vocational Training Institute. We have the SC, Assessment and Certification. We have the ATP. ATP, it's mostly used in DIT, okay? Here in full, ATP stands for Assessment and Training Packages. We have the CBET, Competence-Based Education and Training. We have the ITC, National Training Council. We have the MC, Modular Curriculum. We have the QS, Qualification Standards. We have the UVQ, Uganda Vocational Qualifications, UVQ, Uganda Vocational Qualification. Then we have the UVQF, Uganda Vocational Qualification Framework. Then we have the UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. We have the NICH, National Council for Higher Education. All of those bodies, the different roles they play in implementation. So we should go about them. Then we have the KUSUVA, sometimes are used in the CBC. KUSUVA is knowledge, understanding, skills, values, and attitudes, which are the competencies needed for a 21st century secondary school graduate. Then we have the NDP, the National Development Plan. We have the DIA under the CBC. DIA is discover, explain, analyze, and apply. The learners discover for themselves, they explain, analyze, and then apply. Then the CBC, competence-based curriculum, KBC, knowledge-based curriculum, and among others. So to wind it up all, that's what I can share about the brief overview of the revised lower secondary curriculum. Unlike when Mr. Seno, you have a question to ask about the brief overview, but I remain Sewanyana Farouk. I teach of geography and entrepreneurship education within Kampala metropolitan area, Sanaf Namungona. So if you have, yeah, you're welcome. Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, because someone, yeah, that's, mm, yeah, you're welcome. Yes, yes. Yes. It's on that point, yeah. Mm, yes, yes. That's it. Yes. Mm, yes, please. Yes. Mm. Yeah. Very, very true. Yeah, very true. Yes, please. Mm. In the active, yeah. Mm, yes. Yeah. But, yeah, like, mm, yeah. Mm. Now that, mm, that's, that's it. Mm. Different, they're totally different. Mm. It- Okay, you're welcome. Your concern, I have heard it, but to deal away with it, what I suggest, we teachers, we schedule back another online meeting, then we come up with the ways on how to study, how teaching is concerned, how assessing is concerned, how awarding marks are concerned. If we do that, that thing will go away, okay? Because now, right now, everyone is doing what he or she thinks is right, okay? We have no prescribed format to go through. Okay, the prescribed format is there, but some teachers haven't yet known about it. Hope you are getting it. So, if we accept to unlearn what we already learned, if we accept to unlearn, then learn and relearn, we shall be implementing this curriculum successfully. That's what I can tell about that issue, sir. Unless when you have any other view. before I end the meeting. Okay,